Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. Where we'll show the partnership between Sophos and CrowdSec and show you the interaction between Sophos Firewalls and CrowdSec Blocklists. Before we start, we might wait 1 or 2 minutes to see if more people are arriving, and we'll start very shortly. Okay, as we wait for people to arrive, I remind you that you have a chat. Don't hesitate to ask questions during the webinar. We will answer either directly or at the end. And without further ado, let me introduce our Sophos partners, Pars Mystery and Jubin Agara. Here you go.
Awesome. Yeah, should we start?
Yeah, let's only introduce ourselves and we'll start the webinar as people arrive. They will probably start on the first few slides.
Perfect. Yeah, Jubin, if you can go to the next one. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today in this joint webinar of how Sophos Firewall and CrowdSec threat feed can elevate the threat defense. So I'm Parth. I manage a Sophos Firewall product globally. I lead product management and strategy for network and content security at Sophos. It's been like 10, 11 years in this firewall product line with Sophos, and we have been building certain unique differentiating features which help us integrate well with third-party threat feed and CrowdSec threat feed, and we'll see how it will benefit our customers and you all to really increase the defense against attacks and threats. Jubin, over to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Jubin Agara. I'm Senior Product Manager for Sophos Firewall. I handle multiple areas, including the threat feed integration is one of them. I've been with Sophos since 2019, so it's been 7 years now, and looking forward to this webinar.
Very well.
The next one.
Yes, let me introduce myself. Hello, everybody. I am Julian. I am Deputy CTO at CrowdSec, and among the various management tasks that I oversee all the CrowdSec integrations of our Blocklist and different products into third-party vendors and software. So I think let's start with Sophos' presentation. Then I'll follow with the Blocklist presentation of CrowdSec, and we'll finish with a demo made by Jubin. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, let's see how in this current situation, the firewall as a product has evolved. So if we go back to like 2011, that's where the unified threat management, where we put all the network protection kind of features into just one box and used to call it UTM. And if we 5 years down the line, that's where in 2015, where next gen firewall word has started picking up, where we have added user and application protection in the product. And with Sophos Firewall, we integrated firewall with endpoint and start exchanging threat insights between network and endpoint. We call that feature as synchronized security. And that is one of the differentiating thing that we have been building on. Came 2020, that pandemic time, that's where we saw a lot of work from home and the boundaries getting mixed at the periphery level. And that is the SSC focused era where we got to hear about SD-WAN, zero trust network access rather than the plain old VPN thing, DNS protection. We got the cloud threat intelligence piece integrated in the firewall. And then for all our customers who keep turning on such new generation protection features, we also added fast path acceleration. So you can keep turning on new age security and protection features without really need to refresh the hardware or upgrade the firewall. And it is now that the attention is more onto advanced AI detections, active threat response, how we integrate with more security and protection and the threat feed, like third party threat feed from CrowdSec, and make the firewall secure by design, and how either our own or third party MDR or SOC services can integrate with the firewall. So that is the MDR focused firewall time as we are in today. If we go to the next one, with the current state of the firewall, there are certain differentiator that will help you as a customer or our partners to really uniquely protect the customer network. We call it active threat response, which is the next step of synchronized security, where we have integrated firewall with endpoint as well as MDR. And this three product works cohesively to protect customer network very uniquely. So every network has firewalls, which is wireless endpoint, and we make them work together using Sophos Firewall automated response capabilities. So if there is any threat identified at the network level, Firewall will go talk to the endpoint, figure out very specifics on which exe or which process generated such malicious traffic, who was the logged in user, who was the process user at that time, change the endpoint health state to red, and make sure that that threat cannot progress laterally. So it's the lateral movement protection also kicks in. So that is the synchronized security. But at the same time, we have enabled our MDR analyst, which is looking after the customer estate, to make sure he can in real time push the threat feed, which could be IP, domain, or URL, onto the firewall. And that is being protected in real time without any specific configuration. So if we go to the next slide, I'll explain more on how exactly the evolution works with active threat response. So since the launch with 2015, Sophos Firewall has something called Sophos XOps, which is like 1.4 million list of IP, domain, and URL, which is mainly command and control like threads, which is being protected. And that is the real time pattern kind of thread list, which keeps getting updated on each of the Sophos firewall being deployed out there. 3 years back with version 20, we integrated our MDR threat feed, which is Sophos MDR analyst curated threat insights for our customers being integrated into the firewall. And we don't only identify threats, but also respond to the threat, as in protecting those threats at the firewall level. And when we launched that feature, we heard from many of you that you have been using CrowdSec threat feed or any third party MDR or our own partner providing SOC services to their customers. And to cater to all those use cases, in V21, we have got third party threat feed feature into Sophos Firewall. That's where any third party threat intelligence feed can be integrated into the Sophos Firewall, and firewall will keep fetching that threat feed dynamically in real time from configured sources. We will see it in the demo. uh, we will see how CrowdSec and firewall work together here. And once those threats are identified in the network, if it is coming from a managed endpoint, firewall will again query that endpoint and get more threat intelligence around these incidents to figure out who was the logged in user, who was the process user, which exe or executable generated such malicious traffic, and assign certain health check and changing of health state for those endpoints. And then in 21.5, which went out like 6 7 months back, that's where we added network detection and response capabilities into the Sophos firewall. So even without deploying a specific separate NDR product, our customer can just turn on NDR within the firewall and benefit from those network detection and response capabilities. And a few months later, that is sometime Q2 start of calendar 2026, we are launching 22.1, that is 22 MR1 version, where we are integrating NDR active threat intelligence, which would detect certain anomalies and certain adversaries which are active in the network using certain detection patterns. So that is how we are evolving active threat response capabilities in the firewall. In today's webinar, we are going to focus on third-party threat feed. So if you go to the next slide, what you see here as a gray rectangle, that is our customer estate. So they have a, let's say, Sophos firewall at the gateway level, but within their estate, they have managed endpoint. They could have some unmanaged endpoint, some IoT devices. They will have switch, access points, certain servers. So that is the properly, I mean, standard customer deployment that we see. And then if we talk about this third party threat feed that's somewhere out in the internet, say CrowdSec servers, where if you configure once, Sophos Firewall will keep fetching those threat feeds at the regular intervals. And that threat feed, which could be IP, domain, or URL, will keep scanning the network traffic, block those threads, and also trigger the synchronized security for the managed endpoint. And there are certain APIs that we have exposed to really block threat at switch or access point level as well, using some MAC identifiers. So that is the active threat response with third-party threat feed. Similarly, if MDR analyst sitting at Sophos SOC or at the Sophos side, or if customer is using Sophos XDR to figure out threat analysis themselves, that is where there is a capability to push those identified threat in real time in the firewall without any specific configurations needed. So here there is a differentiation. If you integrate any threat feed with any other firewall product, not Sophos firewall, then you will have to create some object. Then you will have to create either DNS block list or firewall drop rule to be able to really block those threads in your firewall. And that is limited to either firewall subsystem or DNS subsystem. When it comes to Sophos firewall, you don't need any configurations. So you don't need to create a firewall rule. You don't need to create, say, DNS block list or any web protection policies. This is integrated seamlessly at all the subsystem. So once thread feed is inserted in the firewall, it works across the subsystem. So firewall, DNS, web protection, deep packet inspection, IPS, at all these level, the thread will be protected without any explicit drop firewall rule or any configuration needed. So that is the differentiating way we have integrated thread feeds into the firewall. We will see that in a live demo a bit later after a few slides. But if we go to the next slide, yeah, I hand it over to Julian to take us through the CrowdSec part.
Thank you very much, Bart. Okay, so CrowdSec, some of you know us, some might not. I will do a quick summary of what we do, and I will focus on our block list mainly, and how you select our block list for integration into your thread feed with Sophos. So CrowdSec, at the origin, the idea was to protect the community, of agents that defend their servers. Sharing millions of signals per day, they are able to identify which threats are attacking them and share this intel to protect themselves. From this, we create the block list. In the next slide, you can see that we have a catalog of block lists that will serve different purposes and that are also sized to be ingestible by your devices, focused on the type of activity you want to block, focused on your sector of activity or the behavior of the attackers that you have observed, like brute force, CVEs, etc., etc. So as you choose a block list, we can see in the next slide that it's populated with attackers that we have observed on the network. We build the block list from signals we have. We don't aggregate IP reputation from outside sources. This allows us to trust what triggered a signal of attack. And it also allows us to choose how we validate that an IP is currently attacking. So it's a trust-based validation by the number, and it's real-time data, which means that the block lists are updated multiple times daily. As we see an IP that is being reported by more and more trustworthy endpoints of our network, we will classify them and put them in block lists. And this results in those block lists that live. IPs that stop attacking exit the block list. New IPs with malicious activity integrate the block list. And we see that overall on our block list, we have about 5% of daily rotation, which really help the users trust that this data is not stale and that they are not blocking IPs that did something months ago and that are either cleaned or changed hands at the moment they are handling them. In the next slide, we'll see that we have a really easy way to create an endpoint on which firewall like Sophos can pull. You just choose your firewall. It will sometimes define the format, the output format of the thread feed. Sometimes it will be a raw list of IPs. Your format will be specific to the constructor. And in the next slide, we see that once you have created your endpoint, you have a URL. Some basic authentication credentials will also be provided to you. And then you can select as many block lists as you want to be served by this endpoint. IPs will be merged and deduplicated. You will see the total of IPs that are provided to via this endpoint, and it allows you to scale at what you are able to ingest and also sub-select which block list you might want on a certain endpoint, another block list on a different endpoint, pulled by different firewall depending on your use cases. But how to choose those block lists? I will, in the next two slides, I will quickly tell you how we do that. So when someone comes to us they have explored the block lists that are freely available, they have explored maybe some of the ones they can access in self-service, and they want to know more. We have an open source software called IPDEX that you can use, but sometimes we assist people in using it. And from a sample of IPs that try to enter your infrastructure, good or bad, you just take all the IPs, we can analyze them and tell you, okay, we have seen that from the sample you have given us, this percentage of IP we have deemed malicious. Some are suspicious. The classification of those IP are people doing brute force, scan, etc. And you see that the top block lists are CrowdSec intelligence block list, malicious VPN, and in general background noise IPs. This can give you a first stepping stone for saying, okay, let's try the CrowdSec intelligence block list. It seems to cover 44% of the IP, and we will be able to test it either in dry run or real evaluation in the firewall. All these IPs in the block list, we can trace and validate that they are here for a real reason. And if you go to the next slide, you will see that for any given IPs in the block list, you can ask in our UI or via CTI, okay, but what did this IP really do? Why is it in the block list? And we'll show you the different behavior attacks it has performed, the calendar on which it has performed those attacks, which country it has targeted most, and also the attack details, meaning the name of the scenarios they have triggered. Is it a CV? Is it a generic brute force? Is it some other kind of malicious behavior? So that's it. Now let's see in the demo how you go from a block list to a thread feed and how Sophos Firewall handle them.
All right. Thank you, Julian. Okay, so demo, I'll just walk you through the real-time demo, and we'll see how things are done. From the configuration standpoint, you just need to know, get the feed from the any threat intel provider, let's say CrowdSec in this example, and then you plug it to a firewall. So first, we'll walk you through the CrowdSec UI where Julian just walked you through. So I'm on the crowdsec.net. We have this blocklist option. So if you click on this option, it will take you to the blocklist page where you can see different blocklist. As Julian mentioned, it is by industry, behavior, even by the countries. So depending on what you want to select or apply to a firewall, you can choose. But first step is to configure the integrations. So if you click on the integrations, we have all the integration here listed. So today we are demoing the Sophos Firewall integration. If you connect on this integration, you can change the name if you need it, but I'll just go ahead and create. So once you create the integration, it will populate the endpoint that firewall will talk to for fetching the threat feeds. So I'll go back to a firewall. So this is the Sophos Firewall running latest version. As path highlighted, it is under the active threat response storyline. So we have all the different feeds that path just mentioned about MDR, NDR, and XOps. But what we are interested in is in the third-party feeds. So if I click on the third-party feeds, I can just simply add the new feed, and let's call it CrowdSec. I go back to this integration where we have recently created. I'll copy the endpoint information, paste it here. Before I jump to the authentication part, one thing you can decide here right away is whether you want to do this as a blocking or monitoring. Most of the time, customers want to first monitor the effectiveness of the feed, whether it is detecting false positive or it's doing a clean matchup. So you can decide block or monitor. So for our demo, I'll use block. You can decide the position because we allow customers to add more than one feed up to 50. And then we support different type of indicator. It can be IP address, domain, or URL. So I'll select IP address because it is an IP type of an threat feed. For authentication, it's a basic authentication. I'll go back to the console where we just created integration. We'll copy the username and then finally copy the password. You can do a changing of the polling interval. It starts from 5 minutes to up to 30 days, but I'll leave it as a default and hit save. Now, once you create this integration, which is CrowdSec 2, we just need to then plug the thread feed that you are interested in. So I'll just hit continue, and then I'll select plug a block list. Now here you can select the thread feed or threat intel of your choice. So I'll just use the AI crawler for our demo and hit subscribe. And you are done. I'll go back to my firewall screen and hit refresh. So it will start polling the information from the CrowdSec. So now you can see there are around 18,000 indicator of compromise. You can also see how many indicators are there, what is the storage quota used, and what is available. Now, if you click on this indicator, it will also list all the indicators that we have fetched from the CrowdSec. Now, just to demo it, I'm using the Windows appliance, which is just behind my firewall, so I can do the real-time verification. So I'll copy one of the indicator and try to access it from my browser. I'll copy this IP address, and firewall should actively block this. And just you have noted, I have not configured any kind of firewall rule whatsoever. You don't need to configure any other additional configuration than just adding the thread feed. It is as simple as that. So, you can see like, it is not able to access anything here. I can go back to my firewall. I'll go to a dashboard or a control center, what we call. And here there is a dedicated pane where you can see all the details around active threat response, and third party is one of them. You can see there is a one detection by CrowdSec feed 2, which we recently added. If you click on this, it will show you more details about what is the source IP of that machine that tried to access it and how many events it occurred. Now, if you are trying to access this feed from a Sophos endpoint, we'll show additional details like a process and a user as well. Now, if you want to know about more details about the destination and which module blocked this feed, you have this active threat response report. If you click on this report, it will give you more insight about which feed blocked it, which module blocked it, and also the user. So as I mentioned, if you are trying to access this feed from a Sophos endpoint, then you can see more details. Now, one of the question will come is like, how can I identify it's a monitor only or log only? So here you can see there is an action, which is log and drop, or log only, which is monitoring. You can see additional details like the destination IP, the module which blocked, etc. And if it is coming from a Sophos endpoint, we have this synchronized IOC, which will fetch the process, user, and all this additional information right from the endpoint. So we have a tight integration between a Sophos endpoint and a firewall. Next, we'll see how these events are getting populated into the central console. So if I go to a Sophos Central, which is our unified console where you can manage all the Sophos products. You can also monitor Sophos Firewall as well. So under my products, we'll see all the products that we offer. I'm interested in firewall management, and I'll go to a report generator. Now here you'll see a list of all firewalls that my account has. So I'm interested in particular device, which is this one, and hit apply. And I'll choose the report I want to view. Now it will fetch all the details about this specific firewall directly, and you can now see the different events that has been blocked by CrowdSec feed. I can adjust the column and even add additional information like the destination IP, country, which is coming from, etc. So if I hit apply, it will give you additional information as well. So it will tell you like which country this IP is belonging to based on our own internal country DP mapping. And yeah, that covers pretty much about it. Now, next we'll see, how the different traffic is getting blocked by the Sophos firewall. And for that, I'll just switch the slide. All right. So, one of the thing, let's say if you have some kind of a resource which is hosted behind the firewall and it is protected by the firewall, like for example, you have some kind of a web services behind the firewall and you are using a WAF or a DNet type of a traffic, we do a source IP match for those kind of a traffic. So if you have the source IP matching within the thread feed that you have integrated, we'll actively block that. Another thing is any kind of a brute force or a password guessing attempt that is, let's say brute force attacks are happening to a firewall, public services like, VPN portal or web admin portal. We'll also match the source IP and actively block it. Let's say if there is any kind of an outgoing traffic, or let's say user within your network is trying to access a bad IP address or a domain or URL, we'll also actively block the destination IP as well, and also the source IP in case of there is kind of some bad rogue endpoint sitting in your network. So yeah, these are the different traffic matching type based on the events that is done. All right, so next we'll move to the slides back. Parth, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jubin. Nice demo. All right. So, talking about secure by design, it was last year where our CEO Joe Levy took a pledge with CISA, that is Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency in US, that as a Sophos we will invest in all our products to make it secure by design. So when it comes to customer experience, when they open the firewall out of the box till they configure and start using it, the product is conceptualized and developed in a way that it is secured from the beginning. So Jubin, if you go to the next one, I'll take a few examples to explain how Sophos Firewall is very different. Maybe it is now that you keep seeing some security incidents or some exploit or some vulnerability being exploited as a 0 day for different firewall vendors every week here and there. So very first thing is best practices built in. So whenever you deploy out of the box, the security is intact. Simple example, when you need to access your firewall configuration as a network admin from the internet, for Sophos Firewall, the web portal is not accessed on the internet by default. And the way it is built, you cannot enable it for out full internet. You have to have a very specific source IP, or we really encourage by giving 3 free ZTNA licenses when you have Sophos Firewall, so that rather than exposing your portals on internet, you can use ZTNA to securely access even firewall configuration. And then there is a central management, which is again available free of cost. So if you have any firewall licenses, the central management comes along with it, where you can manage your individual or a group of firewalls without exposing any ports. Even though the firewall doesn't have a public IP, it works fine. And then come to hardening attack surface. You might be seeing a lot of brute force attempts and guessing attacks happening out in the wild. And you might have seen many firewall vendors taking away features like SSL VPN remote access, which is, I think, the most used remote access way for the firewall kind of deployment. If you see Sophos Firewall with V20, we launched more secure new VPN portal. So you continue using SSL VPN, but we have hardened the attack surface by more containerized architecture and really giving very specific access rights to the specific portal to make sure that 0 day or exploit cannot harm your network or the firewall as a whole. The third thing around automated hotfix support. So that is there in the Sophos firewall architecture from the beginning. If you really look at any security advisories from any firewall or VPN vendors, it usually says that so and so CVE with, say, critical high score is already patched, and you are requested to upgrade firewall to so and so firmware to stay protected. If you really look at Sophos firewall security advisory, it just says that your deployed firewall is already protected. There is no manual action or intervention required from your end. And that is made possible using automated hotfix architecture. So as a network admin or as a customer or partner, you need not to upgrade the firmware to be patched against security incidences or exploit or vulnerability. It will be automatically patched. You don't need to schedule the downtime, upgrade the firmware, reboot the firewall, and then deal with all the uncertainties that comes along with upgrading the firmware and all. So it is all real time, automated. The vulnerabilities will be patched. So that's another key differentiator. And then the proactive monitoring. So we have invested into our own security team at Sophos side, which keeps monitoring all the deployed firewall out there without any specific license or subscription to really proactively monitor those. As a Sophos, our interest is to make sure the firewall as a product and our customers are not exploited or there is no compromises happening across the install base. And for our customer, the benefit is that even if there is any compromise attempts, the team proactively monitoring a Sophos side will reach out to customer through Sophos support and work with customer to make sure the compromise can be stopped and eliminated before it goes out in the network and things like that. Plus, we have one of the best bug bounty program in the industry for our tech enthusiast customer to really report if they really find any loophole, any exploit, any vulnerabilities in Sophos firewall. So these are like four key things making customer security as our top priority as we keep developing and making the Sophos firewall as a most secure firewall product in the industry. If we go to the next slide, and this is where we call Sophos Firewall as a first MDR or XDR optimized firewall. So we talked about active threat response, where using third-party threat feed or third-party MDR, SOC, or Sophos MDR service, it is integrated into firewall such that it not only detect but also respond to the threat in real time. There are advanced AI detection already integrated. So we talked about NDR essential and NDR detection capabilities being integrated in firewall. And then we talked about secure by design pieces. So there are these three key pillars which make sure that the firewall itself is optimized for a recent and the current threat landscape. And then we talked about this proactive monitoring piece. So something that you see here as a virtual CISO, or what we mean really is our own security team proactively monitoring certain threat telemetry and insights across the install base to make sure we protect the compromises happening out there. So this is how it's full offering working seamlessly to protect the customer install base with a certain third party offering like CrowdSec threat feeds. I think, yeah, this is what we plan to cover in today's webinar. Jubin, if you go to the next one, let me see if there are any questions out there that we wanted to discuss. All right, there are few that I want to just talk about. Uh, Maybe we can discuss it here as we are in the webinar. So I think one that we can see is we talked about integrating CrowdSec threat feed into firewall. Is there any limit of say 1,000 or 5,000 kind of threat feed limit like IPs or domain that is kind of limited by Sophos firewall or in this integration? Maybe Jubin, if you can highlight that.
Yeah, so from the firewall standpoint, our range is pretty high from the number of indicators that firewall can really accommodate. So it starts with, let's say, 3000K and can go easily up to million. So it depends on which model you are running, but even the lowest end model can accommodate up to 300K. So yeah, we have a pretty good storage in terms of threat indicators.
Awesome. Thanks, Jubin. So it's not like 1K, 5K, or 10K. It's in
Yeah.
millions that we are talking about. So practically no limit to worry about. All right. Another one, when you covered traffic directions like inbound and outbound,
Mhm.
usually when customer configures the inbound protection and that threat feed is blocking certain malicious IP from the internet, there's a lot of noise because if I have put up a service online and then
Yeah.
there are many countries, many malicious actors try accessing that. So will it not create a lot of noise in terms of logs and alerts that customer would see in their environment?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And yeah, I'll practically show how we have managed that thing. So if you look at the Sophos firewall, and if I go to logs settings, just quickly refresh my login. So if you look at this active threat response, we have given a exact control about what type of traffic you want to really, notify or have an event for. So example, which you talk was about the brute force event. So in that case, you can simply disable the remote source match for inbound traffic, and it will not create any kind of a noise, which is not really very valuable inside that admin need to act upon. So they can simply disable this log option. And same way, if you are have enabled the notification for via email, we have a similar controls available there as well. So you can simply disable that respective log events, and it will not generate any kind of noise.
Awesome. So we already have granular logging control
Yeah,
available to eliminate or configure such noise issue. I think there is one
correct.
more question coming. I'm not sure how to answer that one. Maybe Julian, what is the average decrease in percentage of alert once implementing CrowdSec?
Well, I think this is a case that is specific to what the user is protecting and his traffic, etc. And of course, the blocklist they chose. As we saw, and because you can ingest a lot of IPs, you can get the most out of our different block lists. And we have observed on customers that it can decrease their overall traffic by 40% by blocking all the malicious attacks. Some customers realize how much they are getting attacked by random bots and things like that. A lot in e-commerce. We've got a really good example in e-commerce where the sites are constantly scanned for stealing information, copying products, etc., etc. And on top of that, you have spam bots and things like that. If you have a popular website, it will be attacked even more. And some of our customers were even surprised that most of their traffic was actually bots. So by using the proper block list, you block this malicious traffic, you save resources on your servers or on your hosts serving your website or APIs. And yeah, so the percentage varies a lot, but it blocks 90 to 95% of the background noise that you will see. So if your website is victim to a lot of background noise, it will cut drastically the resources that you allocate to this unwanted behavior. I hope this answers the question. And if there are no more questions, I will thank everybody for joining. Thank you, Jubin and Pars, for this thorough presentation and really good demo. I hope to see you soon in our next webinars, and follow Sophos and CrowdSec on social medias. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.